Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Luzzy's Hibernia Inn. I'm Dan Luzzy, chief cook and bottle washer here at our humble abode. Today we're going to cook a couple of specialty items for you that aren't necessarily on our menu at all times, but they are dishes that we mix into our repertoire, if you would. We're going to start out with a veal chop, garnished with some sliced roasted red peppers, mushrooms, and some scallions. We're going to garnish the dish with some roasted red potatoes. We're also going to do a seafood salad for you, a little shrimp, clams, and scallops. And I guess we're going to do a little appetizer we've been putting out, a little chilled appetizer over some croutons, some shrimp, and some sliced steak, and some bruschetta. So join me in the kitchen, and let's take it away. For our first dish today, we're going to prepare a veal chop, a loin veal chop. There's rib veal chops and there's loin veal chops, and I prefer the loin. As you can see, this baby's a monster, very pricey, and it's basically for that reason we stopped serving veal chops for a while. Just going to add a little light oil to our pan. We're going to saute it, brown it, and we're going to finish it in an oven. We're going to roast the veal chop. Very pricey, these veal chops. And we're just going to give it a whirl and see how it goes. We're going to get the pan very, very hot, and we're going to try to sear the outside of the veal chop so that we can keep the juices inside. We've also recently started preparing roasted potatoes. For a while there, we were just serving pastas with our meal, but we've been getting a lot of requests for some sort of a potato and a vegetable. So we're using these little B red potatoes, and we've been roasting them. That's been our main potato we've been serving. We have a few other types we can prepare, but this is the main thing we've been doing, and then we'll cut a few of those up and show our viewers how we do them. I want to get this pan nice and hot. All right, I'll start cutting a couple of these potatoes up just to show you how we prepare them. I take the little ones, like I said. I don't like the big clunkers. And we're just going to merely slice them in half, and we'll toss them with just with a little light oil and some salt. So I'm going to put a little salt over them, and this is just vegetable oil. After we're through, I'm going to toss them with some olive oil and some seasoning, and we'll show you how we do that. But all we would do is put them on a little pan, and we put them skin side up, and we like the little potatoes because we want them to cook evenly, and they're much more petite looking to complement our petite little dishes. So I see the pan is ready. You can see that bad boy is smoking. Whoa! Gonna add a little salt. And just a little pepper. Put a lid on there. I'm going to keep it on a very high flame. So all we're going to do is for the potatoes, we'll keep the oven temperature at approximately 350 to 400 degrees, and you just want to toss them in there for approximately a half an hour. And I just happen to have a few ready right here. Turn that down just a little bit. So you can see these I guess you can't see. I'm just going to get these off at the bottom of the pan. And you can see they browned up pretty well. Whoa! I like them when they stick to the bottom a little bit. It gets a nice brown color, as you can see. I like where we have to scrape them off the bottom. Alrighty, and then to finish the potatoes, all we're going to do is add them to this bowl. And after I put the veal chop in the oven, I'll show you how we finish them. We'll add a little more salt to the chop. maybe a tad more Earl. We're gonna serve this veal chop with a sauce. So, and we're gonna finish that sauce with some butter. So that's the reason I'm not cooking this with an olive oil. I don't really like to mix olive oil with butter, so that's why we're starting with a cheaper vegetable oil. Okay, I guess I'll get a pan on for some, we want to brown some garlic off of these potatoes. And I'm going to use, whoa, going to use a little olive oil for this. Then we're going to take a few cloves of garlic. I'm going to crush the garlic and chop it a little bit. What we're going to do is brown the garlic into the oil, and then we're going to toss it with some herbs with the potatoes. If I put the garlic in with the potatoes, the garlic would burn much earlier than the potatoes would be finished. So this is why we like to do it later on. All right, I think this veal chop is ready to go in the oven. We're going to add the oil to the top of it. Maybe just a little touch more salt. And what we'd like to do is make sure this oven is cranked up pretty high. We want to finish this as soon as possible. We don't want it drying out in a mid-temperature type of oven. As you can see, there's a lot of brown in the bottom of the pan, and we're going to create a sauce utilizing that brown. We're going to add a little garlic. This garlic here is minced, so it'll dissipate into the dish. We're going to add a little balsamic vinegar. And we'll add a little chicken stock. A little white pepper and salt. Once again, we like to use the white pepper. It doesn't show up in a lot of these dishes. I can see I've gotten the oil too hot already for the garlic, but we'll give it a whirl. While that garlic is browning, we're going to end up adding a little fresh rosemary from my lovely wife Rosemary's Garden. And we're going to add some salt and some pepper with the brown garlic, and that's it. I like my potatoes a little bit on the overdone side and a little bit on the more oily side, if you would. You can see that garlic is browning up nicely. I got that oil just a hair too hot. We want to bring this garlic along just a little more slowly than this. Just want to bring it to that nice golden brown, and we don't want to overdo it to get the garlic bitter. I think we're right about where we want to have it. I'm going to toss that in with these potatoes. And mind you, when you serve the potatoes, you can drain some of the oil off. It's no problem to do that. We got some fresh rosemary here. Very aromatic. Seems to go real nicely with the potatoes. Oops. You're not supposed to be in there. And you can always add a little more if you feel there wasn't enough seasoning. Any of these spices, you should try to add 2 times. Don't try to hit it the first time, especially the salt and the peppers. You want to make sure of that. So I like these very spicy, very oily. You want to give these potatoes some zip. And basically that's it. This is the style of potato we've been serving. Usually with an asparagus or a green bean or a broccoli, some sort of green vegetable. Occasionally we'll julienne some carrots and some zucchini up. But But I'll present them when I serve the veal chop, but that's basically how the potatoes are starting to look. And there's something you can twice heat them. You know, you can have them pre-done, and you can get them hot again at your home, possibly throw them in the radar or put them in the hot oven for just a minute or two. Let me check on our veal chop. It's moving along nicely. We had a couple of appetizers we wanted to show you. The first one is, which should be the first one? Oh yeah, we've been putting out a combination appetizer that we served a, excuse me, a couple of croutons, a couple of French bread croutons that we've made. We've been serving them with a chopped tomato bruschetta mix. We've been serving a couple of the croutons with some sliced chilled steak, and we put a little dill horseradish mayonnaise on that, and a couple of pieces of shrimp cocktail. It's just a little starter course, maybe even something you want to have at the bar. You know, we'll make it a little larger if there was 2 or 3 people, but it's a real nice little tata to start the meal off with. And all we've been doing is placing a romaine leaf down as a base. A couple of these croutons that we've seasoned with a little garlic salt. Let's see, we had a little bruschetta here somewhere. Where did I put it? Oh yeah, it's hiding. Come out wherever you are. So this is a tomato bruschetta that we made on our last show. It's got a little olive oil and basil and garlic in there. And we've taken a piece of steak and seared it off. Just going to cut a couple of thin strips and put this over the crouton. Like I said, we had a little dill horseradish mayonnaise. Just put a little tad on the top. I guess we can alternate them. And I've just boiled off a couple of pieces of shrimp, nice sized shrimp. And we made a cocktail sauce, just a basic cocktail sauce. Some horseradish, a little lemon. And I guess we can garnish that with maybe a little dill over the top, since that's what's in the beef. We have this most nights of the week, unless we're out of one of the ingredients like the dill or something like that, and I don't have time to go and run to Rockaway Market. But that's, we don't have a name for the appetizer. I'm not sure what to call it. You can always phone in and give me a hand with that. But it's got some bruschetta, tomato bruschetta, a little sliced beef over the crouton with the dill horseradish mayonnaise, and a couple of shrimp with a cocktail sauce. A nice little chilled appetizer starter. I believe our veal chop is finished roasting. And I guess we'll take it out of the pan, let some of the oil drip off it, and while we're doing that, we're going to prepare our sauce. As we showed you before, we created a really nice base in the bottom of this pan, which is the many chefs try to duplicate this sort of base in a pan by creating big, thick brown gravies and whatnot, but you're getting it right here on camera, and we bring this, we deglaze the bottom of the pan, let's say with the vinegar this time we did it, to bring this real rich, basic body to get some depth of flavor into the sauce. So we're going to now reduce this sauce, the garlic and balsamic vinegar sauce, and we're going to finish it with a little butter to tighten the sauce up, and we're going to serve it with some sliced pimento, some scallion, and some mushrooms. I've got some roasted red peppers right here. I'm going to take them and I'm going to slice them. I'm going to julienne them, which means sliced thinly, I think. And we have those ready to go right here. We'll more or less garnish the dish. I don't want to put the pimentos in too early, only because the flavor will really affect the dish. I'm going to use them more as a garnish. They're totally cooked anyway. We'll throw a few mushrooms in here. And they're going to cook down very rapidly. We don't pre-cook our mushrooms. I like them nice and white and more petite. And we're just going to take a piece of whole butter. This is a little larger than we normally like to use. Going to add it to the dish. Get our veal chop to the plate. That thing's a monster. And we're going to have some scallion and roasted red bell peppers ready to go. That's a real nice looking chop. As you can see, this dish is evaporating and beginning to tighten up a little bit. We want to turn this into a sauce. We don't want to have a thick, pasty sauce, and we don't want to have it real runny. It's that in between, that nice velvety consistency is what we're looking for here. We're actually looking for big bubbles in the pan. It just seems like the bigger the bubbles start to get as it's reducing, it's a primary indicator that the sauce is finishing. We'll add the sauce and the mushrooms to the chop. Take a few roasted peppers. And like I said, we added these peppers a little too early. It affects the flavor of the sauce. But I feel like it stacks up pretty well against the veal chop. I'll place them on there a little randomly. We're going to garnish the top of it. And it's a little more than the garnish, these chopped green onions. It's going to help the flavor of the dish also. And we're going to add a few of our roasted potatoes with the garlic, brown garlic, olive oil, and rosemary. Going to stir them up. Like I said, I like my potatoes greasy and garlicky. And this rosemary adds a nice perfume to it. I love the way they brown. They're all nice and even in color. If you're looking for these in a supermarket, they're called bee potatoes. They're not those big guys. If you like the big guys, that's what you get. But these are bee potatoes. I like the way they go with a more petite type of dish. And that's our veal chop with sauce accented with garlic and balsamic vinegar, and garnished with some sliced mushroom, pimento, and chopped scallion. Going to prepare as another appetizer, another chilled appetizer, one that we may or may not have on the menu at all times, but we try to produce it pretty regularly. And it's going to consist of some, let me get a plate to bring them over here for you. It's going to, basically it's a seafood salad, and we've got some clams and some scallops and some shrimp. We parboiled the shrimp and the scallops, and we steamed open the clams. They weren't very petite clams, and they weren't gigantic clams. They're in-betweens. We try to order either large little necks or small top necks to get the size that we want. We want them about yay big. That's just our preference. Now I'm going to take the tails off the shrimp. And we're going to cut the shrimp down a little bit. We don't feel we want you to have to need a knife for this dish. And as you can see, trying to fit one of these shrimp in your mouth will be a real problema. So what we'll do is we'll cut the shrimp down just a little bit here to help the situation out. In fact, I'll just cut them in half. Maybe 3 pieces. The scallops look like they're, maybe I'll cut them in half also. The clams look like they're just fine. Little trick to these clams a fella taught me a couple of years ago is to freeze the clams. We make a couple clam dishes here, and we've tried them frozen and we've tried them fresh. I recommend if you're going to have fresh clams in a dish, you would take a knife, a clam knife, and open the clam up right there and just poach them lightly in the sauce. Because if you try to take the clams, fresh clams, and put them in the sauce and put a high flame on them and try to force them to open up. By the time you get to the clam, you're going to be feel like you're chewing on an old shoe. But by putting them in the freezer and then we put them in the pan, they just pop open, and they're generally finished cooking by the time that they do pop open. So it's a nice little trick that these people were kind enough to give us. We're going to add a little celery to the dish. We're going to have some celery, a few mushrooms. Any of these ingredients are optional. I've got a few Kalamata olives and some artichokes. What else do we have here? A little parsley. I've got some clam juice, some olive oil, some lemon, and who am I leaving out here? Oh, we'll figure that out as we're going along. Okay, we're going to put our ingredients into the bowl. Clams, shrimp, and scallops. We'll add a few pieces of celery. And this is the type of dish that you might want to marinate for half a day. You know, the celery gets broken down just a little bit, and the marinade gets into the shrimp and the scallops. This is something you want to do a little bit ahead of time. Going to add a little parsley to it. Some garlic. You could put either roasted garlic. You could put roasted garlic here or whole garlic pieces. But once again, we're using this minced. We've run this garlic through the food processor, and we wanted to get it more pureed so that it wouldn't be show up, and it'll we don't want the garlic real crunchy in this dish. We want the celery to do the talking. We're going to put a little white pepper. Once again, the black pepper will be very, very visible. A little salt. We're going to add a little crushed red pepper to the dish to kick it up a notch, if you would. We don't want to get too crazy with that. I'm going to add a little clam juice. And the reason we're doing that is that if we just had the olive oil as the liquid base, it's just a little too oily. This clam juice gives a little of that seafood flavor kicked in there and just lightens the dish up a tad. Just a little fresh lemon juice we're going to squeeze in. Hopefully a seed won't go in. That should be enough. What am I missing here? So we got some celery in there. I'm going to add a few mushrooms, a few artichokes. Cut them down a little smaller. Once again, I like the certain dishes to be bite-sized. I don't want you to feel like you have to get at it with a jackhammer just to consume the dish. A few artichokes. And if you are marinating it, we have these Kalamata olives. You can use any type of olive you want, of course, and any combination of these ingredients, but you may want to leave these till the end, because these will affect the flavor of the dish, much like the roasted peppers would affect the sauce. If we reduce the sauce with the red bell peppers and the veal chop, the olives are going to have the same effect on this dish, so you might want to add these late. What I'm doing is taking these little pits out of here. You certainly don't want to have one of those show up in the dish. So I guess we're ready to add a little olive oil and finish the dish, I think. Yes. So we got, it's not extra virgin olive oil, you know, that I like it and I don't. This, I want it just a little bit lighter for this dish. We're going to toss the ingredients around. And like I said, this is a good dish that if you're going to have some company over, make it the day before or earlier in the afternoon, so that when you serve it, maybe you made it noon and you're serving at 6, 7 o'clock at night, it'll get a nice marriage with all the ingredients. We're going to get a little bowl, maybe a romaine leaf in here. And we'll toss our salad. Put the juice on the top. Sorry, let me get that over here in full view. And I guess we'll garnish the top with maybe just a speck more parsley. I think this dish is crying for a little red color. Maybe we could help it out with just a couple chunks of this pimento. Not so much that it's going to affect the flavor, but maybe we'll put it on the top there just to complete the colors. And there we have it. It's a nice little chilled seafood salad to start your meal off with, or that could be a meal with a little half dish of pasta, who knows, right? Depending on your mood. All right, just to review what we prepared for you today, we have our chilled combination appetizer, where we put the both the sliced steak and the bruschetta over little garlic croutons. We added that little dill horseradish mayonnaise to the beef. We've added a couple of large shrimp and some tangy horseradish base, you know, your basic cocktail sauce. We also have our seafood salad, chilled once again. We chopped the artichokes and the celery, the different vegetables, and we have a olive oil lemon vinaigrette we've tossed it and marinated it with. And finally, we have that rather large veal chop, loin veal chop, that we pan-seared and then roasted and served with that sauce accented with the balsamic vinegar and garlic. You can see we've garnished it with the julienne red bell peppers, mushrooms, and chopped scallion. And we're serving it with the roasted potatoes we made for you earlier. That after we roasted them, we took them out and tossed them with the brown garlic, the olive oil, and the fresh rosemary, just to perfume it a little bit. And that's about it for today. Hope you'll join us the next time. Dan Luzzi, hope to see you again.